Okay, so welcome everyone to today's class. Today I'm going to be taking a look at this piece here, talk about how to work with a reference in a portrait, a big jump from where we were last class. We were talking a lot about, wait, is it Thursday? No, it's Tuesday. We were talking a lot about the fundamentals of depth and how to make a scene look like it's, part of a scene is in the distance, how to balance a scene. This is all back to portraiture, so it's a very big jump that we did. But I do want to still touch on that stuff just a little bit, just to stitch it back together here. But first, let me do some announcements. So if you want to post your work, you want your work to be critiqued somehow and end up in these videos somehow. Well, the secret, my friends, is our little Reddit here. So go to istebrak.com and click on the Reddit icon. It'll take you to the Reddit where you were welcome to join and post all your work. Please make sure you don't post anything lewd or smutty or things that a 12-year-old shouldn't see, because there's 12-year-olds here who draw and post their art to be critiqued. And don't post furry art. It's not welcome. It never has been. And like just straight up anime, not like no attempt at realistic anime, just flat template cookie cutter anime. I don't want to see it. Other than that, everything is welcome. Hand drawn sketches, paint with oils, just any subject at all. Post it. We'll talk about it. It'll show up in a critique hour. The volume since Google Plus shut down has gone down, so you are most likely, you will make it into a critique hour most likely if you post something that is related, that has mistakes in it and is related to a theme I cover regularly. But yeah, if you're not getting any critiques, it's because you're not giving any. So let people get to know you, get to know others, critique, talk to each other. Community is a big thing in improvement. Another announcement is Portrait Studio sale will be live mid-May to mid-June. I will let you guys know all the details come the time. You should expect one every summer. We've been doing it for 4 years now, or 3 years now, I forget. So you should expect a big one to happen in the summertime. For those who are budgeting at the moment, I will be doing the vaccine hopefully within the next 2 months, within the next week maybe, just depending on surgery. So I might be down and out again because the vaccine really shuts you down, and especially the second one. So there's an absence there to consider coming up. Community challenge is, I'm really excited about this next one. It's a foliage filled challenge. I'm going to talk about how to fill a scene with leaves and foliage and trees, and how it just takes patience. But I haven't sent out the brief for it yet because I haven't found any time to write it down. I've just been really busy with everything's just been crazy, and been working on my garden, and then I've been recovering from surgery, so it's been really rough, and getting back into everything has been also very difficult. So I'll find some time, creative writing time, just for me, and I will write up the scene for you guys. If not, maybe there's no writing in it, but usually you guys are very motivated by the writing. It makes you paint. The narrative is a big, big, big part of creating a scene. So I'd hate to take that away from you guys. Maybe I'll ask you guys to write your own narrative. And then I had one other tiny announcement about future challenges about writing. I wanted to see if there were writers in our community who wanted to submit to like a little contest or a poll, a little creative writing, like a short story, and we, as the next challenge is based off the short story that I pick. So you guys basically write the next challenge, and I pick from them, or you guys pick from them, on a poll, and that'll be the next topic, which is really cool because it shouldn't be restricted to my imagination, which isn't that awesome. I feel like you guys have crazy imaginations, you kids. So maybe that is something we can try in the future as well. So who here is a creative writer? Who here dabbles in that? Who would be interested in writing a story for the community for us to use in the upcoming challenge? Comment in the comment section below. Thank you. All right, let's get going. All right, so I wanted to take a look at this piece and then maybe jump into this one. Most likely jump into it, but it's actually, you know what, I'll just do this one since it's very quick. But it's talking about depth again. So I wanted to show you guys how easy it is to make like a cinematic scene, just like something really strong and feels very professional. And it is as easy as 1, 2, 3, as long as you have the right lasso number. Sorry, your values are way too similar. So whenever you see me struggle with a lasso, what does it mean? Does anyone know? When I struggle with a lasso in selecting for this sunlit, sunset or sunrise, fog kind of environment, should I be struggling with lasso? And why shouldn't I be struggling with the lasso? More at 6. No, let me just, forgot to change the the tablet. It means avoid value sharing. The remove background tool probably would do this in 1 click. You know what, Kyle? This is just my style. This is just how I do it, okay? This is my style, Kyle. I intended to use the lasso tool. It's fine. Plus, we've got an hour here. What else am I supposed to do if things go in 1 click? Alright. So, I'm just trying to select this buddy of ours here. This God-fearing gentleman. This honest-to-God labor worker, you know. This poet. Why am I being so sarcastic here? Who knows? Maybe he's like a super sensitive guy. Maybe he's a great lover. Like, don't judge him. Alright. Okay, so what happens is that this entire area here, you have a sunrise, and whenever you have an element of some kind of sun or otherwise in a scene like this, you have to make sure that you are representing that sun with the right value, with the right magnitude. So that means that the sun has to be pretty bright. So what I'm going to do is just use dodge tool to get that sun to where it's supposed to be. All right. So quick little fix. However, it's not just about the sun individually being bright, it's about the environment. So we could brighten the environment a little bit more and saturate it. So you still, remember, if you're trying to use sliders like Istebrak does, oh, Istebrak made me do this, now it looks great, it's because you didn't move the saturation with it. You have to move the saturation with it so it moves in unison. This is moving only one part of the colors. So if you want to raise things up, move the saturation too, so all of that, everything, the color moves up in every way. All right, so I want it to be a little bit brighter. And I'm going to darken our little buddy here. Select inverse. Because, oh, cancel. Because he should be a bit darker. And you have this bounce light here somewhere. You have this really, really cool bounce light, which you should be exaggerating a little bit more by darkening him. Because it doesn't make much sense that he's getting this universal light if the universal light is a sunrise happening behind. Oops. So get everything on the same level, because he seems like he's a zombie worker. An honest, God-fearing zombie worker. So we have to respect that. 10. 5. Alright, so the thing here needs to be corrected. And that's really all that I wanted to fix in this scene, because it feels like it's lacking a great deal of atmosphere. Is that it for that? Yes, it is. So then select inverse, back to the dude, And then what I'm going to do is just exaggerate some of this bounce light, which will now be very visible, very accessible. Oh. Because it'll be dark enough in this area for that to really come out. So you get more by darkening the scene. We've learned that many times. This has been proven many times. So when we darken a scene, we benefit from it. What are the ways we benefit from darkening a scene? So you've seen this before in many different critique hours. There was that green witch girl. There was, I believe, that little Hollow Knight piece that we did. The list goes on. Every single critique hour started off with me darkening one of the elements or two of the elements for the light environment or something. And is this Jason? Is he wearing a hockey mask? And what that does is that it sets the stage for us to go up in saturation, up in bounce light, up in mood lighting. Mood lighting. What is mood lighting? Mood lighting is many small lights coming together to create a very dim but lit enough to. That's mood lighting. When you have small lights or numerous small lights, you don't go outside in a sunny day and say, wow, I love the mood. I love this mood right now. All right, that's not how it is on a sunny day. There's no mood on a fully lit sunny day or a fluorescent dentist's office, lit up with fluorescent light. There's no mood there. There's lack of mood, which is why it's uncomfortable, because you don't feel the comfort of that deep memory, psychogenetic memory we have of a cave with a little firelight or candles in it, from when we were apes or whatever the story is, when we were Homo sapiens, I don't know, or we are Homo sapiens, when we were Homo erectus. So don't laugh. So the way to create mood is by doing that, by creating many small, safe little lights. And it's not always about safety, but it is about, the dark can be dangerous too, but an atmosphere can be created in a dangerous scene. So think of a horror story and a girl in a haunted house, and there's a single light or a couple lights, or it's a dim indoor light. Like, for instance, Insidious was very creepy because it was daytime outside, but inside the house, it always felt like it was nighttime. It felt like no matter how bright the world was outside of that haunted house, in the house always felt like really scary. That's just mood. That's just turning off all the lights while they're filming, and it's an overcast day outside, or a very dim overcast day, or some kind of way they've sheltered the windows so only some daylight comes in. It's like a desperate, like you wish there was more sunlight coming in. It wasn't that pure, warm yellow light, like just piercing through onto the living room floor in the shape of the window. It was a very dull, gray, diffused light source, barely illuminating everything. And then there's a ghost in the distance, right? There's a ghost down the hallway, which is also very barely visible, like an abandoned house. It felt like, but people lived in it. So there's different ways to create mood, but every single way, the qualifying factor was that it was a dark scene with many small lights, or some kind of small light source that isn't direct. So don't forget about that. If you want mood, if you think mood, I want this to feel, whenever you're saying the word feel, or I want it to seem like it's something magical or something scary or something, you have to darken the scene. But today's change was me lightening the background, and that was because it's a silhouette. And that's because there's a light source here. But I did darken the foreground, and that created this very moody environment here. However, if it's a dark scene, if that's just what you're required to do, you still need to have that mood light. So you can still do this, and I would do this. I would just really get rid of that sunlight and make like a very purpley, desaturated, kind of like no moonlight happening near us. And then we have this, now we have a chance to really strengthen that mood light here. So select inverse. So we're getting rid of that romantic sun in the distance, which honestly has no place here anymore. If we're thinking about a ghoulish guy with his shovel that he's going to use to kill you. And now we can have that indirect light, but we have to desaturate wherever that indirect light hits. So anywhere on his arm, anywhere on his clear skin, this clear complexion, anywhere like that, we have to desaturate as if the moon itself is shining on his body. And if you need to, you could throw in a little bit now that we got rid of the sun from this side. And this little bit that we're throwing in is just right along the edge of his arm, as if the light from the moon is just from the back. And again, barely visible. Just from the back of his head. So this is all just to do with mood. And like the part of the shovel that looks at the light. Actually, I'm just gonna leave the shovel silhouetted. And then just find that terminator line just down this way. And then wherever we have this, now it looks like that Yorick splash on League, which is one of my favorite looking splashes I've ever seen. It is my absolute favorite splash. And I love the mood in it. I love the way it was just dark, and I love the perspective. And this really reminds me of that. Can one of my assistants please pull that up for me? One of the mods please pull that up. The Yorick splash from League, that really cool Yorick rework. There's a little cast shadow on the arm, just to show you guys what successful mood really looks like. Maybe the light is only coming from the bottom, so maybe like this part of the arm is actually dark, which actually looks much better. Can one of my handy dandy assistants please pull that up for me? Kindred Splash is better. I love Kindred Splash. I love the way she was drawn. I love her whole concept. They just don't design stuff like that. They just design pretty cutesy little characters now. Like, do you remember when they designed Rek'Sai? Like, that was so cool. They were giving us these creatures, you know? It was so interesting. Now everybody's a super hot, you know, like, challenged or some kind of dark past. Just a dark, sexy K-pop past. You know, like, nobody's just a scary monster anymore. I hope that changes, but I don't think so. I think they're just trying to make bank. But now it's all wigs and K-pop. Exactly. It's unfortunate. It's okay. Another game will come and do better. Another game will come and take the front of for all that, you know, uniqueness, and League had the crown for a little while because they actually had dedicated artists working with these, you know, these concepts and these stories. But maybe another game developer will come in and give us what we deserve. Alright, so I'm just trying to get that arm to work, so I'll go to the before. It's not all about drawing pretty anime girls wearing, you know, wigs, and it's just so old. It's so boring. Like, come on, man. Like, you know, like, do something else. Okay, so that is all done. That's all good to go. And you still have the option of this version, which is when it was very bright. Right? So I really don't feel like we need it. We never needed it to be this bright. I feel like what you're trying to do is create this really, really strong, you know, like scene where you have, let me see if it'll keep my lasso. Do you think it'll keep my lasso? Probably not. Oh, you know what? I don't need it because I have it on. Yes. All right. Yes. Okay. So now I have the lasso. I'm such a genius, dude. I'm a Photoshop whisperer. So now what we can do is we can just keep this dark, but maybe bring in that little pink that just left over. The sun just went down, and we could possibly just illuminate things ever so slightly, but really just keep that pink going. If you just had to have that strong silhouette from the background, like if you really, really had to have it. But anything brighter than, it just looks, it's not fog, because fog is a texture. We're going to have to make everything foggy. So you can't get away with it by saying it's foggy. Okay, so like that would be the only exception, I would say, is to brighten it. Brighten it in that way if you really had to, but I don't feel like we need it. I feel like the dark scene is nice now, and that those small lights are coming together to make it feel more atmospheric. So Istebrak, how do I make mood? Many small lights, darken the environment, and work with, you know, bounce light and all of that to create the feeling of, you know, that whatever the mood is. If it's horror, if it's happiness, if it's romance, if it's something, it needs to be dark first. If it's magical, like if it's like a character who just discovered a glowing tree, and the tree has a bunch of glowing mushrooms, and there's glowing mushrooms everywhere, and there's a glowing butterfly, and you know, whatever, that's mood, that's atmosphere. Okay, so it doesn't have to be based off narrative, but it must be based off a dark environment. Moving on. Any questions at all? Kind of looks like the blood moon rising. I'm a Photoshop whisperer. Doesn't use remove background. Yo, stop calling me out. This reminds me of old school D&D art, or like the 80s metal album cover art. Yeah, very nostalgic. I don't count Yumi because she was a cute cat. I ban Yumi every time, so fuck that bitch. The face, he just looks very angry. It's very one-dimensional. I recommend doing something else with the face. I recommend seeing what you can do, looking up references for what you think a ghoul, what a monster would be doing. Is he a sentient zombie? Do you know what I mean? Like, can he hold a conversation? It doesn't have to be about Shakespeare, but can he hold up a, you know, a decent conversation about the weather, maybe? His joint pain. If he can, I keep that, you know, porch. But if he's just a goon, I don't recommend this kind of contemplative almost expression. When you think dumb, you kind of think of someone who's slack-jawed, you know, someone who's just like not really there. And in their head, maybe the brain doesn't even work. He just has muscle memory. And so you're going to have to like let the jaw kind of just collapse a little bit like that. He doesn't have a thought in his head. When you have a thought, you kind of put your teeth together. You kind of grind your teeth. You're kind of thinking with your mouth. You know what I mean? Which is probably a big part of acting. It's a big part of showing that you're thinking, showing that you're present. Is to just let all of the muscles in your face reveal that you have thoughts going on in your brain. See, your face betrays you, and it shows what you're thinking about much faster than you want to communicate or care to communicate. And then I'm going to show how his nose receded back because of decay. And then the angry eyebrows, maybe one eyebrow is like a little bit like that. And that asymmetry, you know, that dislocated jaw, that's acceptable. Maybe an ear that's cut off always looks terrible. And maybe just like a misshapen head, just like a collapsed skull, goes a long way. So we've collapsed on both sides. Maybe collapse on the hair side. And just, you know. So you know, that's if you don't want him to seem like he's a very contemplative guy. Okay. So I'll let this one be now. So before, you know, it just seems like an angry uncle. It just seems it looks like a Trump supporter. yeah, he really does. This is it. This was his demographic. And then after, much more moody. And yeah. One more thing is that you could push the bounce light a little bit more. Alright. Just not too much that it makes it look like he's wearing expensive silk or anything like that. But, you know, just enough. And if you wanted to add that fog, you just have to get a straight up grayscale. Like, maybe I can use one of these brushes. Lower the opacity. Oh, come on. What the heck is that? What is that thing that pops up? This is just one of the core brushes. It's the Wispy Skin Brush. And I always, always use it for fog because I don't want to I don't want to get my old brush set. But this is one way of just throwing in some atmosphere as well. Just got here to hear the best joke. Alright, and this here, this part, so you see how I added fog on this side as gray. This fog on this side can be that purple because that fog will catch that color. And then you erase, when you're doing fog, erase with the same brush you use so that the negative space is in the shape. And that's just that's in the skin set. And sometimes I use my mouse and just see what my mouse can get out of the randomization in the brush silhouette. And that's always good too. Alrighty. I actually don't think I'm up for this. But I'm gonna try it. Since it's 5:28, we got half an hour. Let's see how much I can do in half an hour. So filter, liquify. This is just like a blitz kind of session, like photo referencing blitz. What can we call it? What's a good thing to call it? All right. So I'm just everything that I'm changing, I'm darting my eyes back and forth to the reference. I'm not like changing a bunch of shit, hoping that it looks like it and then checking. Everything I'm constantly checking. So if you wonder how I do this, I'm constantly checking. Right, so you've got liquify. This is something we didn't have when we were younger. Okay, we had nothing. So we darted our eyes back and forth, and that's where that habit comes from, because we had to. There was really no way to go back and correct it. You either got it right the first time, or you erased everything and started over in that section, or just started the entire drawing over again. Lightning round. There we go. Lightning round. A photo finish. Speed run. Speed run. I like speed run. I like speed run. This man just gave up when it came to hair. So to create mood, we need to create contrast between light and shadow. And to achieve that, we need to darken the environment and then add lights onto that. Excellent. Because have you ever tried to take a bath in like the full light? Usually we dim the lights or turn them off, and then take the bath and then light the candles and take the bath. So that it has to be a dark scene first, or else the candles, they don't feel like they're really candles. They just feel like annoying little lights just hanging out over there. But when we turn off the light, we can actually appreciate those tiny little lights, because it's enough darkness that they become the dominant light, and combined together, it looks better and can, you know, create whatever mood you're after. It doesn't have to be a positive romantic bath. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm just perfecting the scale and the measurement. So I'm looking at the eye, the pupil, and then going straight down in a straight line and seeing whether or not the eye you've drawn here matches up with it. And when it comes to references like these, I love these references because it has everything ready for you. It's got all the contrast you need, it's got all the texture you need, and the photo is taken in such a way where you don't have detail in light areas, because cameras didn't used to work like that. I don't know if this is an old photo or if it was edited to look old, but you lose detail in the lights. That's how you know that, you know, it's not that you only have detail in the midtones. See how we have nothing in the lights? And that's good, because that would just be too much detail. It'd be overkill. So these types of references are great because they reveal everything. They give you everything that you need. They don't reveal everything, sorry. So before, she always kind of like lower jaw heavy, and then I enlarged her eyes and shrunk her jaw. Alright, so let's see what I can do. So I'm actually going to get rid of the pupils and the iris and just focus on the whites of the eyes. So select background tool, huh? I need to try that. Where is that? Where is that? I'll find it another time. And so now I block in. And blocking in, the best way to block in, of course, is to zoom out. And zooming out helps you make brush strokes with more conviction. So what does that mean? Can anyone answer that question? What does it mean to make a brush stroke with more conviction? So what does it mean to not have conviction? What does that look like? All right, so I'm just thinking about the light half of the face. Like, there are no shadows on this light half. It's all just light. Like, if I got some of the light and threw it on the light half, we would not miss any of the detail that I just painted away, because that's just how the light side is. There isn't much. Look at how much I erased away. Like, I took away a lot. Right? But we don't miss that because it's on the light side. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just go ahead and just be ruthless and throw in as much light as I need to for it to feel like the light side of the sphere. Over blending, not having confidence, one stroke, 100% opacity, one value, with sexy edges, doing something on purpose versus guesswork or hoping to get lucky. Yes, excellent. So not having conviction can cause over blending, can cause second guessing, can cause hover rendering. Hover rendering is when you're just sitting there moving your brush, you know, hoping that it makes you feel like an artist. That's what hover rendering is. You have to know what you're moving your brush for, what it's for, what the purpose is. And if you're not doing that, then, you know, what are you doing? What mistake are you making? What are you unconscious of at the moment that, you know, that you're doing that's damaging the painting, and you don't notice till 3 hours pass and you haven't made any progress? I've probably just described something we've all experienced. So I'm going to just start thinking about what area I want the central focus to come from, which is always the eyes in a portrait. And I want to just start shrinking my brush, but only for this area, just so I could get a concrete couple of edges here that'll help me get the focus, so that when I zoom out, I know that I have a reference point for what is too small, what is too sharp, and only really the focal point can stay that small and that sharp. And so the lower eyelid gets a line here. Light's coming from our left, so this half of the eyeball is dark. And then we get the waterline. And then a small little area here. So because the eyes have already been blocked by the artist who posted this, I can go ahead and start detailing, but please don't just jump from blocking to detailing the way I just did. I'm critiquing. Your process will be very different. So I'm back to the face. So automatically, it's muscle memory. I zoom out and I shrink my canvas and I enlarge my brush. Okay. And this part of the nostril, this whole area of the nose is actually pretty dark. So squint your eyes. Look at the nose. It's just like a big blotch of black. So make sure you have enough for it to read as that. And then look at that light side nostril. It's just a little speckle of dark. It's not a lot of grays. There aren't a lot of grays, and you threw a lot of grays in there. So go and throw those sexy edges in. Just be merciless. Just be straightforward, you know? So there's just a lot of blocking, and this is where it all happens. Blocking is the most important area. And look at all these safe grays. Look at all this fear, you know? So much of it. Your reference is begging you to turn it into a higher contrast piece. It's telling you exactly what you need to do. But your lack of belief or faith in your blocking, or lack of belief in a large brush that gives you too much paint, your fear of that brush is actually damaging or limiting your potential as an artist. So if you don't know how to use a large brush, decide one day you're just going to sit down and only use a large brush for a painting and just look at the benefits. Just reap the rewards of that. It'll be weird at first, of course, but you get used to it to the point where you don't know how to paint with a small brush or medium-sized brush anymore. A lot of you act like you listen to me, but you don't do it anyway. You've watched all my videos, you've watched enough, but you still use medium-sized brushes. And I'm calling you out right now. So I'm starting to smudge, and I'm letting the smudge take care of the midtones in between the spaces that my blocking brush couldn't handle, that my blocking brush couldn't pull off. And I'm just thinking about all these areas that I need to blend out. So this little area here, and I'll switch to soft brush in a bit. So just, you know, it's not a fundamental you can ignore. Blocking is an extremely important part of applying paint early on in the painting. It's not an optional part where you can apply paint with a soft brush and then detail or clean up the edges later. No, you need a sharp brush to establish all the geometric planes that you're responsible for. So now I'm blending. So these areas, take a look at these areas. Just like I overpainted on the light side, I'm going to overblend the areas that are blended. We're really not going to miss the quote-unquote detail that was here. There was none. This is what I've blended next in my blocks. That's how I know what I need to blend next. Because it's something that's already looks blended in the piece, between the blocks. All right, and then I'm going to take care of these messy areas. It's okay if the hair is not something you've painted yet, and so you're kind of worried about, you know, whether or not you should blend or hit the hair area. Right, it doesn't make much a difference how messy your brush strokes are in this area, because you're just going to go back and throw some nice delicate brush strokes in that area. All right, and then I'm going to see that little area right there. Yeah, I know you guys listen to the class, but don't getting called out. But don't listen. You know, you're present, but you don't really believe that it's going to work out for you. It's not that you don't respect my class or anything. No, you guys are here trying to learn. It's that you guys don't think it'll work for you. And that comes from something else. That comes from a lack of faith in oneself. That comes from a confidence issue. If you really are out here watching tutorials and not trying what they're trying because you already have decided you're going to fail at it, then just stop drawing. Quit art. Quit art. Is that something easy for you to hear? No, it's obviously not, because art is what you want to do. But if you're too much of a coward, or you don't have enough self-love, or you're too scared, or you don't have confidence, art takes so much balls. Art takes so much confidence that if you don't have the confidence to block, you're not going to draw a good. It's just that simple. You're not going to draw a good face. So when I talk about, you know, when someone said here, it looks like it's bad confidence. That was a good answer. It's when you don't have brush conviction, it just makes your painting bad. So if source is out of something where, oh, it's not going to work out for me particularly, that's a depression we're all fighting. We all fight that. That's something that I've heard so many times before. That's something I say. I would, for instance, one example in my personal life is that around 3-4 weeks ago, I bought some bricks to build a basic garden wall, basic retaining wall. And for some reason, I'm at the checkout counter and I bought the bricks. And I just, for some reason, think that the bricks, even though I've seen them built and done, and I know, and I can tell you right now how to build a retaining wall, and this is stuff that I know how to do. For me, it was like it was never going to work out. Like, for me, I'm just never going to have that brick wall. It's just because I wanted it so badly that I thought I wasn't going to get it. Like, it was too good to be true. Just something that simple. So even like I'm dealing with that in my own life, that weird self-doubt or just self-hatred or something that says for you particularly it won't work out. So if something is telling you when you try blocking, yeah, blocking is great, but when you try it, it's just not going to work out. Whatever that voice is, just by all means ignore it. That's a pain body. That's just a horrible little monster in all of us that says, you know, don't try anything new because you might fall and die. And it just comes from, I don't know, survival or whatever it is. At the end of the day, I don't think it's a good force because it stops us, it stops me from doing so much of what I want to do. So just ignore it and see if whether or not, you know, that's why you're not trying these really concrete solutions to real problems in your art. So blocking is the only reason we're at this stage in the painting, because I have paint to manipulate that is representing surface area that is geometric and three-dimensional, which is what realism craves. Realism runs on geometry. And if you don't have that, well, what do you have? A bunch of mush. You keep smushing around and pushing around. Like, really, some people paint just like this. Like, this is just, they're just shifting paint. I'm going to move that back this way. And then, you know, I'm going to move that here. And that's all you guys are doing, is just shifting shit around, hoping the solution looks good. No, it doesn't. This is probably what you guys look like with your little, let's ignore the blocking stage and just jump right into. No, stop being ghouls. Stop being silly little babies who ignore the concrete solution, which is just sit there, measure if you need to, get your symmetry line, and work on what you need to work on, which is the blocking, whatever it is you're having issues with, measurement. Stop reorganizing and repositioning stuff and just go for the overhaul change. Alright, and then this bounce light on her nose is coming from the cheek, which is something I need to add here with soft brush. That's when I bring out soft brush whenever we talk about bounce light. Whenever bounce light comes up in any sort of way, soft brush is really the only way to do it, because it's a really diffused soft bounce from a surface nearby that is getting lots of light, enough light to share with everything around it. What a magnificent abstract piece that was. No, it wasn't. It was bad. I swear one of the viewers today will be like, wow, that smudge technique was great. Let me try that. Let me do that instead of block. So let's keep talking about this blocking stigma. What are some reasons why you guys hesitated to start blocking, if I haven't already covered them? What were some of the issues you guys deal with when it comes to confidence and blocking? Just blocking specifically, not confidence in general. Alright. So I'm just darkening that nostril a little bit more. And then there's like little areas where the shadow sneaks under the nose. Just there. And then there's the bounce light up and around the nostril. And I don't care if it's not super clean, because I will get a hard brush to clean out the shape of that nostril, just so that it's as sharp as it needs to be per nostrils. You know, nostrils need to be super sharp. Making a mess with a big brush is the fear. Making a mess. Okay. Oh my god, so avant-garde. Actually, Picasso started as realism painter. Yeah. I didn't know that blocks to place where, especially in more subtle geometry, I don't know what blocks, to place where it's, especially in more subtle geometry like the cheekbones. So if you are having issues with blocking and not knowing where to place a block and you don't have a reference, that's because you don't know the planes of the face. So you should probably there's many ways around it. There's painting average values on a photograph. So trying to find the blocks in a photograph. There is studying the, like a very low poly head model. There is getting some clay and just sculpting and trying to sculpt something that will make you understand the planes of the face. Like it's just like a fast track it's like a vaccine against bad art is sculpting. It's amazing. I make all my private students sculpt eventually. Like they just actually go out to Michael's, buy some clay, and show me pictures of the, you know, if they're having issues with understanding values and blocking, I instantly make them go sculpt. And all kinds of stuff, and in different stages, and the same face over and over, because when you sculpt, you have a better understanding of these planes, a tangible memory of them. So that's a big, you know, tip there. All right, and then now I'm just going to think about those subtle values that sit on the light side, really decreasing my opacity all the way down low and working with a low value, and just finding where the little cheek smile part is right here. I haven't done the eyes yet, because I'm just thinking about the planes of the face and all that and blocking. And I'm going to blend out the mouth a little bit as well. And then just get my soft brush. So I've talked a lot about before the uses of soft brush as like a haze, even as with a shadow value, you're supposed to throw in that haze on the dark side of the face. Don't forget about that, because it's not just about placing blocks. Once you're done, the blocks are great and amazing, but they don't show the subtle transitions that soft brush can do. Subtle meaning invisible to the eye, but still very visible when you're looking at the reference and looking back at your piece and wondering, what is that? What's that missing? That's that subtle, really super soft skin subsurface transition that you can't really block in, that you have to use a soft brush for. Simple stuff for the upper, for the eye socket is just an edge on the upper eyelid. And then blending out this area. Her eyebrows are a little bit thicker. And then of course we've got the dark lash line. And just a lot of dark in this entire area. So the eyelid doesn't really stay that lit all the way through. Okay, and then the hair you drew, a quick tip on hair is to just stop trying to detail it. Of course, we talked about this before. Don't paint with a simple 1 pixel width brush and try to make it look like a lot of hair. It's just not how it works. Instead, really don't try to detail it. In a piece like this, we don't really need that much detail. You just have to understand where the shine line is, where the core shadow is, and just see what you can throw in and try to make volume happen instead of detail. So we don't really need to know that it's hair. We know it's on the head, we know it's hair. What we want to see is your brush work. So just like that, a dark value that way, a couple of brush strokes overlapping. This light side here is like on a kind of like a band of light, and you're just letting the brush really do the work. And over here there's a lot of baby hairs. I'm going to throw some hair up and then bring it back down and let it layer, and you're just letting your brush layer and keeping the brush generally very, very large. We have another band here coming in just like that, and you get away with a lot this way because, oh, it's too rough for anyone to think that they were supposed to be, you know, satisfied in focal detail from the hair. It's detailed just enough that the brush is actually doing all the work, and it's actually a nice amount of finesse because it's not this like well of detail, but it is a good example of how professional an artist might be because it's about strategy and well-placed brushstrokes. So it is still a way to show off your skills, but it's not a way to show off your detailing skills, which is a relief because I don't want to sit here detailing hair. But I still, if I needed to, obviously I will, but but it's enough. It's satisfying amount. Like this little area here is just enough. If it's closer to the face, of course, you do have to shrink your brush, just because a very large brush like that does not look good beside the hair in that close of proximity. And if the brush strokes you're laying down now don't look great, that doesn't matter. They will eventually after layers and layers, as long as your brush stroke is large. Right, so these are just pretty large brush strokes. It's not, I don't feel like I'm under a lot of pressure to make this crazy amount of detail happen. Because the brush is big. I can only do what the brush is allowing me to do. And that's the secret to blocking. Do what the brush lets you do. The result isn't, you know, the result is the same for all of us. Is that we find a way, we innovate, we find a way to move the brush in a certain way. The size stays the same. It ends up looking good. It starts to look gross and messy when you start trying to shrink the brush. And then you have many different sizes in the same painting, and then it's too much variation in the same amount of space, and then it looks really bad because it just doesn't look like the artist had any confidence, and it looks like there's tons of self-doubt there. So I'm just throwing a couple more here and there. Sometimes I like to use my really, really crazy brush, which is wonderful for setting texture. Usually lighter you press, you get this really distributed speckle, and then the harder you brush, or harder you press, you get a nice full body of paint. And I'll just like mess around, throw that somewhere here or there. All right, and then the eyes are always last in pieces like this for me, just because I don't try to paint the pupil in the iris because I know I'm about to make tons and tons of edits. All right, so I'm gonna try to just detail around the eyes, and my opacity is still at 100%, so I hope you guys are watching that. I'm not out here with 50% with this half in, half out, you know, 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door, 50% opacity, 30% opacity, the safe zone, the safe netting. You know, where I'm painting but not with all my passion, where I'm applying paint but not all the paint. It's like living a half life, you know. Just go for the full percentage and control your brush that way, because there's no opacity control other than your pen pressure when it comes to traditional. And I'm not trying to be a purist or anything like that, but I'm by no means a purist with anything in my life, or a Puritan or anything like that. But I do like to think that our skill should not be only accessible in digital. I want us to learn techniques that are possible in our traditional shift should we ever feel like picking up a sketchbook and starting again. So using those large brush strokes when it comes to pencil or paint, stuff like that. So I'm just going to throw some pretty strong values everywhere for the upper eyelid, and I can get away with a lot with shadow on the upper eyelid because it could just be called makeup, you know, if you throw a little bit too much, and it would still look right. Cleaning the iris, really clean it up. Don't leave a patchy iris, white in the eyes, because it and don't forget that the white in the eyes, it's a sphere, the eyeball, so it needs some shadow. But yeah, a messy white in the eyes, it's just more of that hesitation. It shows more of that, I don't know if I should go dark, I don't know if I should go light, I don't know if this area needs detail, I don't know. And that's where all those patches come from, that patchy work that doesn't really feel like it's there all the way. And now I'm detailing, so that's why I'm using soft brush. That's why my opacity goes down. Soft brush is an airbrush. That's a different reason. Blocking with full percentage is good. Soft brush with full percentage can be very tricky to control. Like when I shrink my brush, I'll raise the opacity of soft brush. When I enlarge it, I'll lower the opacity of soft brush. I am the definition of self-doubt. That's not true, Cora. You've done some really great paintings for class. Alright, so I'm gonna just do some stylization, like stylized smudging, and that's usually I smudge the lower eyelid quite a bit, just because I like that look. It kind of accounts for the lower circle, that lower eyelid, that dark circle, the bag, as well as the lower eyelid in just one fell swoop. It's technique, but also style. I just like how it looks. Alright, and then I usually smudge out the eyebrows, but not before I throw in a nice pigment there. And how dark the eyebrows are is another thing you don't have to follow in your reference, because bushy eyebrows are real. Hair is like a very varying texture. So on this side there's quite a bit of black going right into the nose. I'm going to get pure black in the palette. And I'm almost done for the day. I know I took on quite a big project today, but for posterity. It's a nice quick study for me. That way I get my studies in the week. And actually, I did throw off that little under eye crease here when I smudged. And just continuing, finding little areas, little details, like the open mouth, that little line in the open mouth is great, just here. And then remember that big patch of white I added, so I'm just going to find where I can throw that in. So there's that little light on the lower lip, just there. There's the light on the lip itself, just the highlights, which you could probably do with dodge tool. Careful with it though. There's the Cupid's bow and that entire triangle of light just there. There's the nose. And this is all with soft brush piling on. There's the very top of that nostril, which is a lot, I know, but once I smudge half of it, it'll go back down to normal. Okay, and then before I add in the pupils, there's just a couple more transitional grays that I need to find. And this entire cheek, zooming out, my smudge brush is huge. And then soft brush on pure black for the lashes. And you can see, like, we did so much without the pupil in the iris, but how soon, put your hand up if you put the iris and the pupil in way before this stage, like way before. And then a couple lines. I don't really paint lashes. I kind of just don't need them. But if you want them, make sure that you paint them in a very abstract way, meaning that's just like a couple of them and then very smudged out, blurred, whatever. You don't want them to, we don't want to notice them. Well, you do, yeah. See, Cora? Like, you know better. And if you're watching this video and you're not commenting when I ask you guys to write it back or ask a question, I will forever be mad at you guys. If you're watching and you're perfectly physically capable of commenting and you don't, I'm gonna guilt trip you mommy style. I'll hate eyelashes enough for the both of us. I first think I plain. Oh, the first thing I paint, it's the first thing I paint, it's the pupil and the face. Second, just to make you happy. The face second, just to make you happy. The first thing you paint is the pupil and the iris. The face, you paint that lot. Really? Okay. Alright, and there's a beautiful, oh, I love this little patch here. We're going to apply it radially. Just that little fat pocket right there. Oopsie, low opacity for radial shading. Just there. Ooh, I love that. And then I'm gonna, alright, and then I'm gonna throw in the pupils now, which should be pretty easy. My scale is different from the reference, so I'm just gonna do what the reference is doing with the eyes. New layer. Oopsie. All the way. And that's it! You use the stencil because the mechanics of the eye are too perfectly circular to risk freehanding. I think she's also looking up slightly. So I always use the hard round brush to stencil it in. Our likeness is a little bit off, mostly because I'm just rushing my ass off over here. And then because I use the stencil, I'll blur, not smudge, blur the layer with the eyes on it, with the stencil on it, and then it's easy peasy. You lock the layer, and then you throw in the shadow of the lashes over the iris. You paint in the pupil. Easy sailing from here because we're literally just, we painted the whole face as we needed to. And then the simple little lights there, and then of course there's the specular highlights, which will complete the iris, make it look like the whole painting look finished, which is why you guys rush to it. This is why you guys do this, because it's the part that is the most satisfying, and you're in a hurry because there isn't much really to be satisfied about nowadays. So you just want your enjoyment, and I get that. But don't do it and sabotage your progress simultaneously. Big before and after today. But I hope you guys understood all that I covered today in class. I feel like her eyes are much more flirtatious than ours, simply because this one, she has a squint, so it's very easy to apply that squint. You just do that. It's a small squint, but it's visible. It's there. Actually, I want it to be a big squint. No, that's too big. Whatever. We can always Ista to be too real. We can always trust Ista to be too real. So first use blocking, blending for large shapes, 100% opacity, then lower opacity and use radial shading for more specific gradients, shadows, and light. Yes. Yes. I want to work on it some more, but I hope I covered most of the points I needed to. Any questions at all? So see what I mean by the haze? So this is the dark half. This is the dark half. So I'm going to throw a couple brush strokes on that dark side of the eye. We didn't need them, but now that we have them, we don't want to lose them. Do you know what I mean? It's that haze that only a soft brush can offer. Then sometimes, a little trick, I get my number 5 smudge. It is called the number 5. I keep forgetting. Yes, and I smudge the sides of the shadow, like, because I know there's no detail there because it's a shadow. So I'll just smudge it. It's like a little bit of a push into the realistic realm. Just because where we don't have light, we don't have detail. And then, let me get that, yeah, the wild brush and see if it can pull off some detail for the hair. I'm just looking for the way the brush layers, and then I'll do one quick one to kind of clean up. It's a crazy brush. It really is. So be wary. And because she's blonde, I will exaggerate that in my piece. Just throwing paint in on the blonde sides, you know, wherever light can reach. Just so she feels blonde in the reference, in the painting. Kind of feels like she's balding a little bit, so my you know, this shadow patch actually needs to be much lower. So sometimes really going that low and then building your way back up is beneficial to the painting. See how I'm just erasing, not really erasing, but like layering the brushes to create the hem, I guess, of the hair that I want. And then just to make it look like the scalp is growing hair, I'll throw a gradient back upward. I'll rotate the brush sometimes to get a better angle for that band of light. Anyways, not a perfect piece, but it's a lot to go with. Let me show you the before and after. Any questions? Do you sometimes put the iris in to test the expression? Sometimes it's hard for me to tell if the expression is right with the iris. If it's hard to tell, it may be okay to put in the iris and the pupil temporarily, but I don't recommend keeping it on, which is something that might be tempting if you allow yourself to turn it back on. Yeah, our girls, this one here, her eyes too far away. That's mostly where the likeness is kind of disrupted. And the smile is a little weaker in ours, so that helped a little, I think. Anyway, before and after. So obviously the before and after is very different. But the reason why you have these issues is because you didn't block. Like, look at the line of the, obviously the after is just the likeness, but you know, we have these lines, these indicators here that you know, before you were finished edging out the nostrils or applying the dark circles, or before you got a perfect curve for the eyes, you started throwing in the pupil way too soon, which invited you to throw in the lash line and the detail here. You tried to make hair look like hair instead of just leaving it alone, or maybe just forgetting about the hair because it's in the way. Obviously in this one we have a big change because I work very closely with the reference, but I hope, see, her bald hair is just killing me. I hope today's class was helpful. Thank you everyone for coming. Really appreciate when you guys come to the live streams. She got implants. And if you want to submit your work for Critique Hour, today's Critique Hour was very, very like rich. It was full of a lot. Usually I do one painting and focus on it. I try not to overwork myself. I don't know, man. Lately I've just been so excited about life. I think it's like the surgery, you know? I feel like it took away some really bad thing that was weighing on my soul, and I just didn't have as much motivation as I used to. Anyways, go to Istebrak.com, click on their little Reddit icon right here. It'll take you to our Reddit. Please join it. If you want any of the brushes you saw today or Portrait Studio, go to Istebrak.com and go to the store. If you learned something today and want to give back to the community in some way, even if it's just $1 a month, that's $12 a year. If you feel like the community could use your support, You can join me on Patreon. I do submit rewards for higher tiers. Obviously, the apprentice tier has homework and lots more rewards, private videos, private live streams, etc., or private critique hours. But yeah, there's the $1 tier for those who want to give. And if everybody gave, really $1 is just the best tier for everyone. If you guys want to join, everyone here who wants to join. I'm trying to get everybody in on $1, just because my goal is 1,000 patrons at $1. It'll keep the community going. It's a very safe number for everyone, especially during this time. I'll let you guys go. Thank you everyone for coming, and I'll see you guys on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Bye everyone.